Today we're here with Brandon and we're going to hear about his venture, the WAGMI Fund. So Brandon, let's just hear some of your background to start.
Absolutely. I grew up in New York. I went to high school in Westchester. Also was in an entrepreneurship club from ninth grade. Started one on my own called Smart Investments in 11th grade. Similar idea. Always been in kind of like sales and trading is something that was interesting to me. Graduated, went to UW-Madison, where I started my first business, which was a kind of a budgeting tool for students on campus to get discounts at some of the restaurants that we had in Madison. Partnered with those vendors. Basically, the app would give people a spending plan and pull their transactions in real time. We raised VC funding for that app. But then at around the same time, it was 2021, the crypto NFT bull market came and totally like I fell in love with that space and really never looked back since. Actually, handed the company I started off to a different CEO who has since kind of ran it in the ground. And then I went off and started this fund my senior year of college, which is basically you can think of it as a small hedge fund, which is a managed exposure in across the whole blockchain landscape, all different crypto assets that are actively managed, and we're running about 10 million bucks now. Started with $500,000 my senior year of college. That was 2022. So it's been about coming up on 4 years. And annualized return at this point is like 35% a year. We've had some 80, 90% years. You've had some minus 30% years, kind of how the game plays, but that's a bit about what it's been.
Wow, 10 million off 500K. That's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, we raised a lot of money too.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
all return, but we didn't cook at 20x, but we
yeah.
did pretty well.
That's awesome. So like what is the WAGMI Fund and like what inspired you to start that specific venture? I know you already touched base on like how like crypto was huge back then, but like what in particular did you find so interesting about crypto?
I think I think when you're in college, really like you're gonna, or at least me, right? Because I started that first company my freshman year. I was always someone that was not like a good student at all. It was always tough for me to get anything above like a B or a B plus in any class, even in high school. So then obviously you imagine I got to UW Madison is from semester one, like already the same story. And I knew like we're gonna have to do something kind of on our own if we're gonna want to live the lifestyle that we kind of all want to live one day. So um, I was kind of looking for avenues like what are good ways to, you know, basically take matters into my own hands, and building my company was one way and we were making good money. But I just saw the NFT cycle in 2021, which has since obviously, come and gone. But
Oh, a little NFT thing going.
Yeah, nah,
yeah.
like
I
I
mean,
had
listen,
like I
what'd you
started
have?
like I like made like an NFT project, but I didn't like officially launch it. But like I designed one and like I saw like the ins and outs of it, and like I was trying to hop on that kind of trend, but I was really young at the time. I was like 16,
I
15.
tried to, but I
Yeah.
Same
didn't.
thing. We made a metaverse NFT like real estate thing where like there were homes in the metaverse, the homes were NFTs. And like that just speaks to the kind of bubble we were in, right? And people were buying them. We minted out tens of thousands of dollars of them, which when we were in college was like big money for us. And we were like juiced up. And that was like the aha moment of like, all right, well, this is where the money's at. And then NFTs kind of pulled me in because it was like a get rich quick type thing, which I found attractive. But then I stayed for the tech and for crypto. And I kind of almost by accident stumbled on what I think is going to be the fastest horse in any, in terms of asset classes. I think the crypto asset class is going to continue to be the fastest horse in this kind of exponential age of AI and tech, right? That is clearly where you want to be. I think blockchain rails and crypto are basically going to be the infrastructure that's going to basically accommodate and facilitate the new world
Yeah.
of AI, of tech and energy, all that stuff. So WAGMI Fund felt like you kind of had that vision or that moment in April where I was like, the world is going to crypto. Even though it's a little overheated right now, and it was like easy to see that, it feels like if you just stay in this space long enough, you're gonna kind of do well. And that was the big gamble, right? To leave the company I started to do a completely new company. Obviously, my parents wanted to like disown me at that point and like were furious and thought it was reckless and all that. And we didn't make money. You know, we started the fund April 1, 2022. You could look at the Bitcoin chart, and that was like the pico top of that cycle. Bitcoin proceeded to go down about 80%. Ethereum went down like 85%. We were able to like be a little managed on the risk, so we went down like 19%. So like we outperformed. So we kind of did our job. We just wanted to survive. But look, since then, you know, Bitcoin's up 4 or 5x off the bottom, and then a lot of the altcoins that we invest in have done really well. And that thesis has come to fruition, you know, and that if you just survive and not zero yourself out by speculating too much, there's a massive opportunity in these markets, and there will be, right? Like continued. We're very, very bullish. The fund has, you know, proprietary indicators that we use on charts, and then also we have a real fundamental outlook on where crypto and where risk assets in general are going to go in the near and long term. In 2026, we think is going to be a very, very good year. So that's why we want to stay. We're not going anywhere for the time being.
Got it. So moving into the next question, what should young entrepreneurs learn about attracting investors?
That's a good one. First time I tried to raise money was with the first company was called Lacey. That was the budgeting company. The goals were different. I wanted to raise $100,000 from a VC in and around Madison or the Midwest, whatever. That's where I was. That looked wholly different than us trying to raise capital from, let's say, high net worth individuals and their friends and family for a liquid investment like a hedge fund. I think the best advice we ever got was when you're young and you're trying to raise money, because if you're trying to do anything, you will always need to raise money. You just, especially when you're young, you just don't have the money to spin up or bootstrap whatever it is you're trying to do. So inevitably, when you need the money, first you have to go to your friends and family, like the low-hanging fruit, right? And you need to get whatever you can from them to build out like an MVP, a minimum viable product, or whatever it is you need to just get off the ground. And then ultimately, which is what we did initially with $30,000. Then we got to the point where we needed 6 figures. What you have to do is you have to think of it as like you have a basket, right? And everything in the basket is basically an element or an item that is a reason why they don't want to invest in you, because you're super young. You're, you know, in the basket, you have age, you have inexperience, you have a lack of track record, right? Like all the reasons in the world for them not to invest in you. Yeah. And what you have to try to do with your pitch is just take as many things out of the basket as you can, right? You have to try to give yourself some level of credibility. You have to think of narratives like spinning, you know, if it's age that you know is going to be a concern, like for us with the hedge fund, especially, or like, you know, who in their right mind is going to give a bunch of 22-year-olds out of college meaningful money. You know, what we basically ended up doing was a big part of our pitch was like, you need to invest with us because we're 22. Your 40-year-old MBA has no idea how to find the next 10x in crypto, right? He's not on Discord, he's not on Twitter, he's not on Telegram, he's not running bots, he doesn't know any of that stuff, right? You need to invest in young people that are in touch, and that's how we spun that narrative, right? Even if we don't even truly believe that, which we did, but still, like even with Lacey too, you know, we would find narratives that are like, well, you know, you're lacking. I remember we didn't have meaningful revenue, but you know, you have to find ways to spin it. We're like, well, we don't have revenue because growth is more important to us at this point, because we want to, you know, wouldn't you rather have an app that is like all over campus for free and then just turn on the revenue switch instead of basically having 30 kids using it and paying money, you know, because we know how much of a difference a free app gets in terms of adoption or not. And just thinking of shit like the things like that, you know. So you know, I would say think of the basket when you're trying to raise money. Before you ask, you need to think, have I taken as many things and have I de-risked the basket of things that unqualify me as best I can? And then I think you can proceed to try to get some capital.
Yeah. The next question that I'm going to ask is, what was like the first major obstacle you hit when starting the WAGMI fund?
Well, I mean, so many. Like so many times where it was so over. But I would say Look, I mean, obstacle from like month one, I mean, the price action went against us, right? So like we started this fund because we were long and bullish and pitching crypto to people, but crypto was falling off a cliff, right? So naturally you have to, that's another narrative you have to spin where, you know, ultimately where we landed was we raised that $500,000 again, like I said, from the low hanging fruit, my partner's dad, my dad, my uncle, you know, direct bloodline, people that are not going to say no. And $500,000 not enough to obviously have a fund. But then we raised a few $1,000,000 during the bear market when prices were destroyed, because we took the challenge of like nobody's looking at crypto and crypto became like a scam again. We basically, our whole meat of the pitch was you don't invest in this stuff when Bitcoin's at 60K and all-time highs and everybody wants to get involved in crypto and the Super Bowl ad is Coinbase. You want to invest in this stuff when everyone thinks it's a scam, Bitcoin's dead, and nobody's looking at it. And then the trade's not crowded and you have what's called asymmetric value on the upside because there's not many people in the trade. And when people come back, you're in and you're going to have the best return. It's the hardest thing to do from a human emotion standpoint. Humans want to chase and FOMO in when there's momentum. And the hardest thing to do is buy when there's blood, but that's the only way to make money. And we basically raised millions of dollars on that alone. And that was totally right. Eventually people did come back and crypto caught a bid and all our investors multiplied their money. And it's the same thing as what I just said in the last question. You know, even when you have a challenge, you just have to be always selling yourself, selling your product. You can spin any narrative, any bad narrative, you can spin to, you know, work in your favor if you're good enough at that, you know, at basically turning any story.
Yeah.
Got it. And going into the next question, if you were in high school today and you had to build over again, like what would you do differently than you did the first time? And like what would be like your path into success, into somewhere you are like now?
I think you guys are in high school at like I mean, aside from people that were basically buying Bitcoin at like fucking, oh shit, I can't, my bad.
All good. All good.
Except for people that were buying Bitcoin when they were in high school at like $2, right? I think you guys have the craziest opportunity set. The fact that you're like 18, like that's, I would do anything, even though I'm only 25, because I already can see the exponential growth that's occurring in AI tools. And it started with just chatbots and LLMs, and now you have Claude Code, Claude Cowork. You know, these are things that are basically AI agents that can build an app for you. Building the Lacey app for me took about 8 months to build the first version of the tech. Cost me about $25,000, and it was terrible, in my opinion, looking back. I mean, it worked, it got it done, but it was nothing. I mean, you can build the same thing today, meaning today. Like it'll be started in the morning and finished at night because you can log on to Claude Code, literally say, I want to build an app that does this, build it for me, debug it, roll it out, blah, blah, blah. And it'll do it in the same day. Like it's the craziest thing ever. And I've been really, I've been using Claude Code and Claude Cowork. I mean, it's only out for a couple of weeks, but I've been using it to build algorithmic trading bots for the fund. I've been using it to build Google Chrome plugins that detect AI video and images because I've been getting fooled all the time on Twitter and Instagram, and it was annoying me. So I was like, hey, can you build this this thing that catches it and gives me an alert? And it did in a day. Like, you guys are 18. You guys have access to tools that when I was 18, I could have never dreamed of, right? Especially as an entrepreneur. And I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So if you're an entrepreneur today, that first 30,000 you needed to like get an MVP and maybe hire a dev doesn't exist anymore. You actually, with $30 a month, which is your subscription cost, or $100 a month, you could download Claude Code or OpenAI's ChatGPT, which is not as good, but whatever. Gemini, all these different AI tools, and you can just start building any product you can think of. And so like if you come across any problem, like you should be thinking every day, like in the cafeteria, at home, during lunch, what problem did I encounter today? Or what problem do we all share as an age group, as a school, whatever it is? And what's the solution that doesn't exist? I'm going to build that solution. I can literally build it in a week now. It's not like I'll build it this year. It used to be I'll build it and by the end of the year, try to have people signed up. But you can have sign-ups in a month because things are rolling out so fast. So if I was in high school, I'd be thinking, what are the issues that my generation has? Your generation doesn't get off the phone. Like your generation doesn't, in my opinion, like does a bunch of wacky stuff. But listen, like, you know, there's issues that you can easily solve using AI, and you can build an app that is truly compelling without having any coding knowledge. And like that was always my age group. That was always the biggest barriers. Do you know how to code? Who are you going to hire to code? Now those guys that studied coding and stuff, I mean, it sucks obviously, but that skill is going to be worthless in a couple of weeks, right? So you're lucky enough where you're in the sweet spot where you're not like 4 years older, where you could have just spent all of college studying coding or like something that's going to be totally like not super valuable anymore because of AI. But you haven't started your career and you haven't even went to school or picked a major. So you have total freedom to be like, what are the obvious trends that is going to make me a ton of money in the future? And I think it's understanding how to use AI tools. I think it's robotics. If I would get it, I would be getting into like drones, aerospace, you know, those are the obvious things that the narratives, you know, if your eyes are open, you know, the narratives that are going to do really well. It's no longer like go into real estate, go into finance and crush it out of college. Like that whole narrative is done basically. You know, we don't need those guys anymore because of AI. So I think you guys are in probably like your age is like the first age that you guys are in the sweet spot. I think everyone 2 years above you kind of got screwed a little bit, but it's not that bad. I think the people 4 years above you got completely screwed. A lot of them, if they studied stuff that is just not relevant anymore. Like one of my boys is a brilliant developer, software developer, got hired by Disney, coded their whole like syncs the lips up for foreign languages to like, you know, it puts it in their language. He's a genius. Just got laid off because they don't need him anymore because they're using AI. So, you know, you guys are in a great spot where you don't have that issue, but I would just have my eyes open and be like, you know, this is like the creator golden age basically, because you don't need anyone but yourself.
Yeah. I think you covered pretty much everything we had. We had 10 questions, but you covered like literally everything that we were going to ask in like 5.
That's good. That's great. It's been like 10 minutes. So
thank you for
Thank you very much,
so
brother.
much.
Absolutely. Good luck to everyone in the class.